You're not lazy, at least not in the way you think. Somewhere along the way, you started believing that your lack of motivation is a personality flaw, that you're just missing discipline or ambition or willpower. But neuroscience tells a different story, a quieter one. Because laziness isn't a moral failure. It's often a dopamine regulation issue. And dopamine? It's not the pleasure chemical, like social media told you. Dopamine is about anticipation. It's about movement. It's the chemical that whispers, go. And when that whisper becomes quiet, you don't feel driven, you feel heavy, stuck. And here's where it gets dangerous, because when dopamine drops, effort feels expensive, not physically expensive, but neurologically expensive. Your brain is constantly calculating, is this worth it? And if the predicted reward is unclear or too far in the future, the brain hesitates. It conserves energy. This is not weakness, this is evolutionary design. Thousands of years ago, energy meant survival. If effort didn't guarantee reward, you didn't waste calories. Fast forward to today. The environment changed, but your dopamine system didn't. Now, rewards are instant. Cheap. Scroll, like, watch, swipe. Each tiny hit spikes dopamine, but only briefly. And here's the problem, no one tells you. Frequent spikes reset your baseline. So when you sit down to study or build something meaningful, the brain compares it to the instant rewards it knows, and it loses interest. Not because you're lazy, but because your reward system recalibrated. This is called reward prediction error, and it governs your motivation more than willpower ever could. Your brain releases dopamine when reward exceeds expectation, not when you simply receive pleasure. So if everything is predictable, nothing feels exciting, and when nothing feels exciting, effort feels pointless. That feeling, that quiet resistance, it's not laziness, it's low motivational salience. Your brain simply doesn't tag the task as important enough, so it doesn't fund it with dopamine. And without dopamine, action feels heavy. Here's where things become uncomfortable, because discipline alone doesn't fix this. You can force action for a while, but forced action drains fast. Why? Because willpower uses the prefrontal cortex. That's the logical, decision-making part of your brain. It's slow, deliberate, energy expensive. But dopamine pathways, they are faster. They operate beneath conscious thought. They bias behavior before you even decide. That's why you sometimes open an app without remembering choosing to. Now here's the paradox. The less dopamine you have for meaningful work, the more you crave easy stimulation. Low baseline dopamine increases impulsive behavior because your brain is trying to self-correct. It wants to raise the signal. But here's the trap. Quick dopamine lowers baseline further over time, so you scroll more, feel less, you watch more, care less, and slowly motivation for hard things evaporates. Now let's add stress into this equation. Because stress changes dopamine too. Short bursts of stress can increase focus. But chronic stress, it suppresses dopamine signaling. And when dopamine signaling drops, effort feels heavier than it objectively is. That's why burnout feels like laziness. But it isn't. Burnout is neurochemical depletion, not character weakness. And here's something most people misunderstand. Motivation does not precede action. Action generates dopamine, not the other way around. This is critical because it means waiting to feel ready is a mistake. Dopamine responds to progress, especially small wins. Completion releases dopamine. Prediction of completion releases even more. That's why breaking tasks into smaller visible units works. Each step becomes a reward signal. Each step resets expectation upward. You're not building discipline, you're rebuilding dopamine sensitivity. And here's something powerful. Dopamine loves clarity. Vague goals produce weak signals. Specific targets produce stronger activation. Be productive means nothing to your brain. Write 200 words. That's measurable. Specificity creates prediction. Prediction creates dopamine release. This is the rewiring process. It's not dramatic, it's subtle, gradual. And that's why people quit too early. They expect fireworks. But neuroscience doesn't promise fireworks, it promises adaptation. You probably heard of dopamine detox, the idea that you should eliminate all pleasure to reset your brain. But here's the truth, you can't detox from dopamine. Dopamine isn't a toxin, It's fundamental to survival. What you can reset is your sensitivity to it. And sensitivity is shaped by contrast, not deprivation. When stimulation is constant, nothing feels rewarding. But when stimulation is intentional and spaced, ordinary effort regains color. Now let's talk about sleep. Because sleep recalibrates dopamine receptors. Chronic sleep deprivation reduces receptor availability, which means even normal rewards feel weaker. Sunlight matters too. Morning light anchors your circadian rhythm, and circadian rhythm influences dopamine timing. When it peaks, when it dips, movement also changes the equation. Physical effort increases dopamine release capacity. But here's the nuance. It's not about extreme workouts, it's about consistent signals, small daily activations, because dopamine loves rhythm, not chaos. Now let's address identity, because this might be the most powerful shift of all. If you keep telling yourself, "I'm lazy," your brain encodes that prediction and behaves accordingly. Remember reward prediction error? Expectation shapes dopamine. If you expect yourself to fail, small effort feels pointless. But if you shift identity to, "I am someone rebuilding discipline," now effort aligns with self-image. And dopamine supports consistency. You stop chasing motivation. You build systems that generate it. And slowly, what felt impossible becomes neutral, not exciting, not dramatic, just doable. And that's the secret nobody glamorizes. Productivity isn't passion, it's regulated dopamine, balanced expectation, stable habits, repeated signals, and patience long enough for adaptation to occur. You were never broken. You were overstimulated. You were never lazy. You were neurologically miscalibrated. And calibration is reversible. The question isn't, why am I so lazy? The better question is, what signals am I feeding my brain daily? Because motivation isn't magic. It's chemistry responding to behavior. And once you understand that, you stop blaming yourself. You start designing your environment, your inputs, your expectations, your identity. And that's when laziness disappears. Not because you forced it out, but because your brain finally received the right signals. You are not lazy. You are adaptive. And adaptation can be redesigned.